It's a beautiful, beautiful time to be a Newcastle United fan. It's the morning after that Chelsea game, and I'm still not over the result. I don't care about the performance. As long as we got 3 points and put us in strong position to get into Champions League football, that's all I care about. But let's not rest on our laurels because Arsenal away is a tough game. There's no guarantees that you're going to beat anybody at home. Think back to West Ham at home, Bournemouth at home, Fulham at home. So Everton, they've picked up since David Moyes come in, so they could easily get a result. But I don't want to talk about games today. I want to do more scout reports because I think I've found the perfect Joelinton replacement. What that Chelsea game showed us is when Joelinton's not available, we lack that physicality, we lack that presence. And I might have just landed on a gem that could bring that physicality, and he actually plays a Joelinton role, but in France at the moment. And that is, I'm probably going to butcher his name, so I do apologize if I do. And that's Monaco midfielder Soungoutou Magassa. So who is Magassa and why would he be a good addition to Newcastle United? So I'm here to tell you everything: strengths, weaknesses, style of play, and then we're going to compare him to Joelinton, Bruno and Sandro Tonali. Somebody asks us why I don't mention Lewis Miley in these videos. One, because I think it's too much information. There's a lot of information to take on board as it is, so adding in another player it'll just be far too much. And secondly, because he's not a regular starter for us, I want somebody that is good enough. I'm not saying Miley's not to really come in there starting 11 and fight for places. So I'm not concentrating on our substitutions at the moment. I'm concentrating on our starting 11. When we replace one of them for a game or maybe 2 games or maybe 3 games, will our performance drop off? And that's what I'm looking at. I don't want that to happen. So I want to be able to replace 2 or 3 players at one given time with our performance not dropping off. And that's the only reason I'm not mentioning Lewis Miley in these videos. So who is Magassa? Well, he's a product of the Monaco Academy, so Paul Mitchell will know him very well. Magassa signed his first professional contract at Monaco in 2021, and he chose them over some high-profile clubs. Roma were interested, Milan were interested, Borussia Dortmund being another. There was a lot of those like European clubs that were interested in him. At youth level, he played the majority of his games at centre-back. At senior level, he's played the majority of his games as a defensive midfielder. Described as a box-to-box midfielder, he can play as a defensive midfielder or a centre-back. He's good with the ball at his feet. He's described as a player that's good at winning the ball back and finding optimal passes to initiate attacks, quite similar to what Joelinton provides Newcastle United at the moment. There, let's take this off because it's giving us a headache. Right, so firstly, we're going to look at his strengths. Well, he's educated as a centre-back and he's transformed into an exceptional ball-winning midfielder. He's extremely versatile. He can play as a number 8, he can play as a number 6, but he can also play as centre-back, as I've just mentioned. He's got an excellent, well-rounded profile as a midfielder. He's big, strong, tall, allowing him to dominate midfield. I think he stands at 6'2". He might even be 6'3". He's got exceptional ball recovery skills, and that marks his robust presence in the middle. This allows him to disrupt opposition's play effectively. He's technically very sound. He excels in ball rotation, and he's very good at winning the ball back and distributing it. One of my favorite things about Magassa is how he covers for teammates. He's got such good defensive instincts, and he's got a diverse defensive skill set. Surprisingly, he's extremely comfortable with the ball at his feet. You will see him carrying the ball, but what I love about him is when he wins the ball back, he doesn't dwell on it. He just strokes the ball towards more creative players and allows them to shine. He's very much an unsung hero in a team. His playing styles to anchor the midfield third, and that's reflected in his statistics. His dual role as a breaker and a distributor. His biggest trait is his ball recoveries. He's averaging a phenomenal 7.46 per 90, which is quite frightening. He's got relentless energy and an aptitude for recoveries, all the hallmarks of a great potential midfielder. So pretty much in simplistic terms, what I've just described there is somebody that will win the ball back for you, that will play it nicely, that's allowing other players to shine in more creative areas and being an anchor for the defense and also the midfield. Somebody that brings a lot of qualities, does those unsung roles that nobody else wants to do. So he has few statistics comparing them to Monaco players. When it comes to expected assists, look, he's sitting 16th. You get 0.6 per 90. Key passes, you're getting 6, so he's sitting about 16. Passes in the penalty area, 12. Progressive passes, 12. Shot creating actions, 13th. Goal creating actions, 14th. Progressive carries, 14th. Successful take-ons, 10th. That just tells me that he doesn't take on many players, but he also is not very creative. And I don't actually think he's going to have that role if he was to come in Newcastle United. What the role he's going to have is stopping defensive transitions. So tackles attempted, 4th, tackles won, 3rd, tackles in the final 3rd, 1, 9th, and tackles and interceptions combined 7th. So he's definitely not the finished article. He's 21 at the moment. He's about 6'2", 6'3". He's got a nice long range about him. He's got good length, good width. He's athletic. So he's got all the tools and the hallmarks of a very, very high potential midfielder. And if you can get somebody like Eddie Howe working with him, boy, it can be a beautiful, beautiful partnership. But there is some weaknesses. And what I say about all midfielders, being so young, his all-round game does need refinement. He's most noticeably in his positional sense, but also his decision-making on and off the ball. You'll need fine-tuning in his defensive game, particularly concerning decision-making. For his height, he should be winning more aerial duels than he does, and then he does need improving receiving in the midfield with his back to goal, so receiving on the half turn. This is something that you really do need if you want to reach the top level as a lone 6. He doesn't offer much creativity in the final third. He tends to lend the ball off to somebody else in a more advanced position, which I don't mind, and he also maintaining shape over taking responsibility to create. What I really like about Magassa is he very rarely goes to ground. He's so comfortable in one-on-one situations, just standing his man. And at Monaco, he has been tasked with the responsibility of the Joelinton role, covering for the left back when they adventure forwards, helping out the left back in isolated moments, but providing central presence on the left-hand side. And this is something that Magassa could bring to Newcastle United. He could possibly snuggle in perfectly, as the data shows, for Joelinton. And this is this season's heat map at Monaco. And as you can see, his majority of his plays on that left-hand side. Okay, it's not as heavy as Joelinton, but if just picture it in your mind, you can see it now. And if you can't already, this data might show you even further, because look at it, most of his defensive actions, it's covering for his left back on that left-hand side. And that's exactly the role that Joelinton plays. Even when he's on the ball, he looks to play forward on that left-hand side. This is very, very, very similar to what Joelinton does for Newcastle United. So when it comes to covering for left backs or being isolated in wide areas, I'm so comfortable with him taking that responsibility because he's tall, he's athletic, he's rangy, and he's very difficult to bypass when the opposition's in possession. So let's dive a little bit deeper into his statistics, and this is how he compares to Bruno, Tonali and Joelinton. And as you can see, his ball recovery is absolutely outstanding. He's recovering possession more than any of our midfielders. When it comes to progressive passes and progressive carriers, I really enjoy it. The statistics show that he's very good at it. The one thing that Joelinton does have over Magassa is his goal threat. He's much more of a goal threat. He gets into the box more often than what Magassa does. And I spoke about his comfortability with the ball at his feet, and these statistics tell you exactly why, because he's playing more open play passes than any of our midfielders. He's attempting more passes than any of our midfielders. He's completing more passes than any of our midfielders. He's got a higher long pass than any of our midfielders, as well as a better pass accuracy than any of our midfielders. The only thing that does let him down is he plays more backwards and sideways passes than any of our midfielders. But one thing I will say, he does play the ball forwards very often. Only Bruno is averaging more forward passes than Magassa this season. So what I really like about the statistics, he's not a passenger. He gets involved in the play. If he needs to play through the lines, he will absolutely do that. He never goes hiding. He will always be an option for the man in possession because he's comfortable with the ball at his feet. You'll see him distributing the long balls, but you also see him playing through the lines. And that's what I really enjoy about him. If you were to look at him on the pitch, you would just think, right, he's just a ball winner, but he's far more than just a ball winner because he's so comfortable with the ball at his feet. The only thing he lacks is creativity, but I don't mind that in a midfielder. Sometimes you just play to your strengths, and that's exactly what he does. He doesn't do anything that he's not good at. He doesn't get into the final third. He'd rather play the ball to somebody that's more creative than him, and him just being a little bit more disciplined. But when we're talking about defensive actions as well, he's absolutely trumping any of our midfielders. He's contesting in more duels, he's making more tackles, double more than what any of our midfielders are doing. He's completing more take-ons, and he's got a higher successful take-on percentage than any of our midfielders. When it comes to ground duels contested, contested. He's averaging more than any of our midfielders, but he's also winning more ground duels than any of our midfielders. And then finally, he's intercepting more, but he's also making more ball recovery. So it just goes to show the influence he has on a football pitch. What I really like about this, and he doesn't get the credit for, is the touches made. He's averaging 72.8 touches per 90. That's more than any of our midfielders. Now, one thing I will say is the style of play does come into consideration, because Newcastle United want to play the ball forward as early and quickly as possible, so their midfielders don't dwell on the ball, whereas Monaco, they tend to have a little bit more possession. So I'm not surprised these touches are higher than what any of our midfielders are, but it's still a very pleasing statistic. And I thought finally, let's compare him solely to Joelinton, and this is how they do to compare. As you can see, Magassa is making more key passes, even though he doesn't specialize in that department. He's better at progressing the team. He's averaging more defensive actions, but also winning more defensive actions than Joelinton. The only thing Joelinton's got over him is forward pass percentage, but also carrying the ball. When it comes to forward passes, Magassa is averaging more than Joelinton. So they do, in terms of their actions on a pitch and where they like to complete their actions, they're very similar. But when it comes to on the ball, he would give you a little bit more than what Joelinton gives you in possession. I think this is a quality that we should be looking at. And again, if we just go back to this screen here, Joelinton is tasked with this role, just protecting the left back. You'll often see him. That's why his heat map's always on that left-hand side, because he protects the left back when the left back adventures forward. And this is why our left back always looks better than our right back majority of times, because he gets more protection than what our right back does. So when Tino went over at left back and started playing outstandingly well, that's exactly why. But Joelinton, he does an important role. And I kind of feel like when you put Willock there, or Lewis Miley there, we lack that physical presence. We lack somebody that can anticipate defensive transitions and prevent defensive transitions. And that's exactly what Magassa would bring, that Joelinton brings. And that's why I do feel like he would be a suitable replacement for Joelinton. I'm not looking to replace Joelinton in the long term. I'm just looking for somebody to come in when we've got more games next season with European football that can play a similar role, because we don't have anybody that can play that role. So for me, it's not about going out and finding the best midfielder in the world, somebody that's going to win the Ballon d'Or. It's not about that. It's about, when you're profiling players, it's about signing the right profiles that will fit your system, but it'll also complement your teammates. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to find the right profile of player to fit Joelinton's system, somebody that needs to be physical, strong, and he's got good defensive instincts, and that's exactly what Magassa does. Now, he will bring a little bit more quality in possession as well, so that's just an added bonus. But what we're looking at specifically is that physical presence in the middle of the pitch. And I think when Joelinton gets moved out of our team, that's when we do miss something, and it's visible as well. But look, I could sit here all day and talk about this, but I want to hear from you guys. Is Magassa somebody that you would be interested in, that you would welcome to St. James's Park? Let me know in the comments below. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, because once again, I enjoy making these videos. So if you've enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, away the lads.